Hey everyone, I'm Alexis here with PPM TV. Welcome back to Seacoast Voices. On today's episode of Seacoast Voices, we welcome some of the board of directors from Seacoast Wheelers program. So the Seacoast Wheelers program is a wonderful new, I don't know if I should say new, but they'll tell us more about that, an adaptive bike program, which is a benefit not only for the folks that might be able to hop into the front of the bike if you can't ride a bike yourself, but obviously for the riders themselves. So, moving on. We have with us Board of Directors member Steve Gerhardt, who is also with Seacoast e-bikes. Next to Steve, in yet more blue, another blue shirt, we have Jim White. And then wrapping around the bend on the other side here in the gray vest is Kent Allen. So I would say, gents, let's just go ahead and whoever has an answer, throw it out at me. But to be sure, if you are home and you're multitasking and you want to check it out online while you're watching us, seacoastwheelers.org. Once again, that's seacoastwheelers.org. We'll give you plenty of information on how to check that out as our time together goes on. So let's chat about the origin story. Now, I know that you exist here in the Seacoast, but this started in Portland.
Actually, the program started in Holland.
Well, that's further than Portland.
And it started in 2009, just a simple one act of generosity and kindness. It was a man who rode his bike every day, passed the same route, and there was an older man sitting on a bench every day, and he stopped and talked to him. It turned out that the man couldn't ride anymore. He had mobility issues. So this man went home, and a few weeks later came back with a bike that he had fabricated and put him in the front seat and said, let's go for a ride. And that one act of kindness turned into something called Cycling Without Age. And that became a whole worldwide phenomenon very quickly. We happened to see it in Bicycling Magazine a couple of years ago. And I immediately took this down to our town manager and said, we need to do this. And that's kind of how it started for us. And then we didn't realize at the time, but found out later, there is a wonderful organization in Portland called the Portland Wheelers. And the Portland Wheelers have become our mentors, and they have helped us get this thing going.
And the Portland Wheelers, they're also another adaptive bike program?
The same type of thing.
Yep, same thing. And it's turning out that the more and more of these organizations are propping up. I got an email the other day from the president of Portland Wheelers introducing me to a woman out in the western part of Massachusetts that was looking for some guidance as to how to get involved, how to contact the manufacturer of these bikes, and just some background on the bikes themselves. And they're starting another program there. There's another one that I understand is somewhere out near Concord, New Hampshire, and they are proliferating. They are popping up all over the country. People just recognize that there's so much good in this, especially for the riders, or the passengers, I should say. So I think we're going to see a lot more of these popping up, which is it's just a great thing. What got me into it was Jim came to me a little over a year ago and presented this and asked if I would use Seacoast e-bikes to help maintain the bikes. I said, sure, absolutely, we'll do something like that. And that morphed into me getting more involved in it. And at the time, my younger sister was a resident at Durgan Pines, which is an assisted living facility in Kittery. And so I could really relate to what it is that the people that we're going to have as passengers go through on an everyday basis. You know, many of these facilities, really all they have is the four walls in the room. They don't get outside. You know, when they first go in there, they'll have some family members will come and visit, and then that kind of drifts off a little bit. And so, you know, to get them outside is just, you know, they just find so much joy in it. And then, you know, it's obviously a lot of joy on our part to be able to do that for them.
And it's easier than it looks.
Yeah.
So help me understand. I know, Kent, when we first met, you came in today, and Jim, you two had told me about this a little bit before, that the front pops right off. So help me better understand, paint a picture of the bike for those who don't quite understand what they're looking at and how that works.
Well, the inventor came up with a way to take the front part of the bike off and turn it into a wheelchair.
Brilliant.
So that you can just, in about 5 minutes, you can have it disconnected from the bike, if I'm not mistaken. I've never actually done it. But then you can wheel it into a facility where some of the elders are and bring them out and put them back on the bike and take them for a ride.
And the person doesn't need to hop out of the chair
Nope.
in order to be connected to the bike.
Oh, very handy.
No, in fact, we do not put them in the chair. The staff does.
Of course,
So
sure.
they know how to do it, and we don't do that part.
And so they would come out, the bike would be ready. You would have a volunteer bicyclist, a volunteer cyclist, and tell me a little bit about the terrain that would be necessary. Can they go they can't maybe not go anywhere, but you could go around a parking lot. What would be safe?
You'd be surprised. They can go almost anywhere. I wouldn't go on a really rough trail, but it will go on a well-maintained trail. Here in Portsmouth, we took them on the Portsmouth Rail Trail. We're going up tomorrow, in fact, to take a look at the trail at the top of Mount Agamenticus. We go on roads. We go on really well-maintained trails. It's almost anywhere you can take the trike. They're quite stable, surprisingly stable. They do have a motor and a little bit of pedal assist because they're very heavy, and you need that. So you get into a rolling terrain like we have. These are really quite easy to pedal and maneuver around.
And there's another wonderful benefit. They're free.
Yes.
Now, to the user, of course. Nothing is free, but free to the user. So, Steve, paint a picture of that for me.
Well, what we'll do is we go to assisted living facilities and then also offer to people that are maybe in home, having home care, come to those facilities, and we can take them out. We'll take them 3 at a time and go for rides. And just, you know, there's no cost involved. You know, we're all volunteers here. The only costs really that we have are the cost of the bikes, which is fairly substantial. So, you know, we're obviously looking for donations from any amount from anybody to help keep the fleet going and maintain it. Then we provide helmets, we provide safety vests, we provide, you know, we equip the bikes with mirrors and bags and, you know, everything that is needed. So, you know, we don't ask for anything other than for people to enjoy themselves.
And who do you take for rides? Now, we know, of course, that assisted living communities would be perfect fit.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anyone, do we have any limitations there?
No,
get pretty much
not really.
anyone.
Pretty much anyone. I mean, in some of these facilities, you know, people are not able to even get up out of a chair, so they have a device they call the Hoyer, which is a lift that they'll use to lift somebody up and put them in the chair, or they'll move them from a wheelchair to the other and back. But there's no real limitations to it at all in terms of who can ride. But again, our purpose here and our goal is to get people that really have no other experiences going on in their lives other than being in these facilities or being in their homes where they're just housebound or facility bound, to help them get out and just enjoy nature and a short ride, and, you know, maybe get an ice cream or things like that.
I love
If
that
you look at
idea.
the website, pretty much every route we've already mapped out does go by an ice cream store.
Yeah.
So that was not by accident.
Strategic planning.
But also we encourage family members and their bikes to join us for the ride. And Kent, talk about the just our safety team and how that all works when we go for a ride.
Well, first of all, we're topping out at about 10 miles an hour. So it's a very safe ride, and we have a pilot in front and a pilot in back with flashing lights. We have headlights and taillights and hand signals, and this is all the stuff that we learned at the training up in Portland when we went up to meet the Portland Wheelers. So it's a very slow, methodical, thoughtful ride, and it's always safety first. So as my friend Doug Bennett said when I first started to ride a lot, he said, whatever you do, just make yourself visible. So we're all wearing, very visible reflective vests and lots of blinking lights going on.
And of course, you're all volunteer. So I'm imagining that, as you mentioned, you were trained by the folks up in Portland. So anyone could become a volunteer,
Yes.
meaning anyone could learn to pilot the bicycle. You don't need to be an accomplished cyclist.
Correct.
Okay, that's great to know. So, and what would someone expect to learn? What does the training look like?
The training for me would just be, well, first of all, just safety first, making sure you're visible first, learning the hand signals, and being just really deliberate about it. Don't forget the hand signals. Let everybody know what you're doing. And I think it all just really depends on the leadership and the skill of the front pilot, because the front pilot is really leading the charge. And if you're not a skillful cyclist when you start with the organization, you will be by the time you're done. Because I just watch and learn. That's how I learn. I'm a good on-the-job training thing. So we learned an awful lot by going to that training up in Portland. Because these guys were very serious. Very serious but friendly. They impressed on us just how important the safety thing was.
Yeah, there's a very specific way that the passenger is called the wheeler. So there's a very specific way that you put the wheeler into the seat. You lift the back end of the bike. That lowers the seat. They can back into it. There are foot pedals, just like in a wheelchair. We adjust those for them. The person pedaling the bike is called the pilot. And everything's very deliberate. They're very stable with two people on them. But every turn you make is very deliberate. The most important thing is safety, as Kent has said. The other thing is being able to have a conversation with people in the wheeler seat, because these people are, for the most part, fairly shut in and don't have a lot of contact with a lot of the outside, a lot of places where they used to go all the time, perhaps. And so we just are trying to give them that 40-minute ride and a lot of conversation and just have a good time. But it's not a difficult trike to pedal. You have to learn how to shift the gears, which is on a ring. It's not like a lot of road bikes. It's a little different. Where the pedal assist is, there are 3 levels of pedal assist to help you on a hill. You don't put your feet down on the ground like you would when you stop with a bicycle. You leave your feet on the pedals on this. Very basic things. It's not difficult to learn.
I think that lowers the barrier to entry.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, you'd mentioned they have a motor. This is an electric motor.
Yep.
So they have a battery that will give us anywhere from 20 to 30 miles of range on a charge, and most rides aren't going to be that long, but there's no noise, there's no smoke, there's no anything. You don't know that there is an electric motor until, as you're the pilot, you start pedaling, and then you'll feel it help you move up and down hills or just maintain speed.
Which leads me to want to ask, how long is the average ride?
About 40 minutes.
Oh.
So it's a nice ride.
That's a nice ride.
Now,
Yeah.
somebody asked us at York Hospital the other day, they have some of their patients, some of their clients with emotional issues. We're happy to take everybody for a ride. But if somebody, would we be prepared if somebody had some kind of an issue emotionally? Can we shorten the ride? Well, of course we can. And we would also encourage somebody to ride along with us. And we're never out of range of the assisted living or the nursing home or the hospital or senior centers. We're looking forward to working with a lot of veterans.
I bet.
I'm
sure.
Kids. Can't wait to take kids for rides.
Oh, and what a way to enjoy. You really feel the joy when a child feels
Yeah.
it. It's magnetic. Yes. So is there a place that you are offering rides regularly now?
Not right now, and the reason for that is we received the trikes in early August. The season will go through October. Well, by the time we figured if we need to get ourselves established, we need to introduce ourselves to the different facilities that we hope to serve. So the plan for the remainder of this season, which is running out quickly, was to go to all of these different facilities, introduce ourselves and take the staff for rides so they can experience it. But we have taken, at the various senior centers, we have taken some of their visitors for rides. And it's an extraordinary experience, not just for us, or for them, but for us. But the other thing that's just as cool as can be is people don't pass us. You rarely see somebody pass us on the road. They stay behind us. And when they do pass, they wave. People coming toward us all wave. People on the sidewalk wave to each other. It's wonderful.
Engaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would imagine that leads to a lot of questions. People want to stop and say,
Oh, yeah.
what is that? Where do you come from? Where are you going? Tell me more.
Yeah, I think we're planning on starting 2025 rides in, weather permitting, sometime in early May
Yes.
of next year, and we'll, depending again on weather, extend that into hopefully end of October. So that'll be the window.
For the brave, those of
Right.
us who are not too
And
afraid of that
if
fall
we get
weather.
enough volunteers, there's no reason we can't do this 7 days a week. But it's going to be dependent on having enough people to do it. Now, Portland Wheelers, we understand they have, 120 or 100 or more than that volunteers regularly, many of them year after year after
Yeah.
year. They train about another 30 every year, new people that are coming in as some are, cycling out. No pun intended.
We have at the moment 60 volunteer pilots, and we really haven't gotten this program up to full steam yet. And we've already got 60 volunteers. We did a little. Kent and I hosted a introduction to the trikes, and we had about 20 of the volunteers show up so that we could introduce them to it, show them the basics. And we rode around York Middle School's parking lot, which is huge, and it was really fascinating. One of the group that came was a family, and they had a 20-year-old son who is autistic, but he had a bike with special wheels, and now he's developed epilepsy, and he can't ride. So we gave him a ride there, and just to see the grin on his face, it's worth everything.
And how old would a volunteer need to be if they wanted to get involved? Is there too young?
Somebody 14 just gave me their email. Might be a little young.
Okay.
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Sure.
You guys?
I'd say it's pretty much unlimited. I think we
Okay.
just have to give anybody a chance who wants to ride. Because
So
I think there's skilled riders from
capabilities.
age 14 all the way up to 85.
And again, we're not necessarily always needing in pilots, but other people to ride along and just as a safety precaution, just more bodies, more visibility, as Ken was saying. So really, I don't see any reason we couldn't have, kids that are, because we're always riding in a safe place. There's a lot of these groups popping up right now. They call them the bicycle school bus, where parents will accompany a group of, 7, 8, 9-year-olds from one location to the schools and from the school back to a pickup location. So there's more and more of this, and it's great to see more and more young people getting involved in bicycling at any level. So I don't see that we would have a problem with some young people with their parents coming along with us and all join the ride. And I do know that the residents or the passengers, the wheelers, at Durgan Pines, they have in that facility a daycare center. Mm-hmm. And I asked, why would you have that here? And it's, well, some of it is to help the staff that's there that have young children. But they said the most important thing is the residents get such joy out of seeing these little kids, and they interact with them on a daily basis. So, to have some young people involved in this, I think would be a good thing.
And they can volunteer, as you mentioned, not just as pilots.
Right.
There are other volunteer opportunities.
Yes.
And that would be, for example, riding along. Are there volunteer opportunities outside of cycling? Maybe a family member wants to get involved, but they don't feel comfortable cycling?
Yeah, we will need help with fundraising, sponsorship. Steve mentioned the cost of the trikes. The second big expense we're going to have is the cost of insurance. Right now, we figure we're going to need, once the trikes are paid for, we'll need between $15,000 and $20,000 a year to run the program. And that's really fairly inexpensive considering it's because it's an all-volunteer group. I'm going to go back. One of the things that I asked the Portland Wheelers about volunteers is, what happens, they've been doing this 9 years, what happens when a volunteer doesn't show up? What do you do? And they said, in 9 years, it's never happened. That's how dedicated these volunteers are to this program and this cause.
That's wonderful. Unheard of almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine that most nonprofits would be hard-pressed to make a claim of 100% turnout.
Yeah.
And how many bikes do you have at this point?
At this point, 3.
Terrific. And what kind of notice, if an organization wanted to call upon you and say, oh, this is the perfect thing, come on over, what kind of notice? Help me understand, Kent, give me an idea. Acme Incorporated wants to come over and of course, get their people involved somehow, so they would maybe hop on the website. What kind of notice do you need to do that? How far do you travel?
I think it certainly would be different for us than for the Portland Wheelers because they're so established and they may already have a waiting list of maybe a month or so, but I can't really speak to that because we're a fledgling organization. I would say at this point, we would jump at the chance to go and help out anybody, but I think the Portland Wheelers has been now for almost 10 years, if I'm not mistaken. And they do have a list of 200 volunteers, and they're very, very well entrenched. But I think that's a really great question, is how long would we have to wait to go and take a ride?
Yeah.
And we'll try to serve you as
Just
quick
something's
as we
popped in my
possibly
head. I
could.
think maybe what we could do is put on the website something like Calendly or something like that, where
Right, exactly.
we can say schedule, here's our open schedule
Yes.
days,
Have
and
it all
let people
done
come in
online.
and schedule like that.
One of the things that the Portland Wheelers does, I think twice a month, they have, I guess they'd call it a pop-up, but they'll be at a location where people can come to them and get a ride. Otherwise, we'll be setting up a regular schedule with the different nursing homes, assisted living, senior centers, hospitals, so that we'll be going there every week, every other week, same time, for the same length of time. But we always will have openings where something comes up. We got a call from one of the senior centers that they have a visitor in stage 4 cancer who sadly doesn't have a lot longer to live, and he wants a bike ride. Of course we're going to accommodate
Of course.
that. So we're going to make sure that we leave space for certain things, but there'll be a regular schedule, and then there'll be these times where we'll say, we're going to be at this location, come there and we'll give you a ride.
I think it will depend on fundraising. A lot of this stuff is very expensive. The Portland Wheelers were showing us their brand new electric vans,
Yes.
which I guess were helped out with grants. But these are big, tall Sprinter kind of electric vans, and they have a garage and they rent space, and everything's high and dry. And I think the more bikes you have, the more you can accommodate who wants to have rides. Right now we just have 3, and they have.
I think they're up to 9.
They're up
Yes.
to 9, so
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, when you have 9 bikes, then you can just you can say yes to a lot more people. So.
And about how far would you travel? Now, of course, the Seacoast is, adjacent towns at this point to Portsmouth. But about how far would you be able to accommodate it? An organization would call, how far would be too far for you to travel?
I think right now we're talking about York, probably Algonquin. We don't want to step on the Portland Wheelers and
course.
vice versa. But we are going down as far as we were at Riverwoods in Exeter. So we'll go pretty far down to Hampton Falls, Seabrook area.
That's pretty far?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's terrific. So would you say if we were going, if our audience, if you're out there and you're wondering, I think this would fit for my organization or my family or my neighborhood, would you imagine maybe within a week, with a week's notice, that you could pull a week or two notice? If an organization were to say, hey, we'd love to have you over, would that be enough?
Yeah, depending on what's on the schedule. Right now, again, we haven't really started, so there are a lot of unforeseen issues. How are we going to schedule it and getting everybody communicating properly to make sure that, I thought it was Tuesday, and no, it was Wednesday. So, we still have some hurdles to jump over, but I think, as long as we have, some bandwidth and we have the volunteers and obviously the weather cooperates to some degree, that's an open question at this point. But I think the more we get into it, and I think Portland does this, is they have come up with a pretty clear schedule. They're going to be at this place this day and this place the next day, and so we could do, like when you'd mentioned, not at a facility, we could pick one day of the week and get down to the skate park in Portsmouth, where the rail trail starts, the head of the rail trail is, and say, okay, then we've got to figure out a way so that, we've only got 3 bikes and we can only do so many rides. We don't have 80 people show up. So, we're still got a lot of thinking through to do with this.
Some logistics for sure.
Yeah.
And right now you're obviously run by a board of directors, as you would be going forward. Are you also looking for additional board of directors members?
Always.
Always. Yeah.
We have nine members right now. It's a really good board. The other thing that's really great is, even though you don't have to be a bicycle rider to volunteer for the program, initially when we put this idea out and told people what we were doing, I would say that most of our volunteers right now are well-established bicycle riders. They've been riding all their lives, very safety conscious. They understand how to ride on the roads. They also understand how to ride on the roads here in this community, which can be hair-raising at times.
That's a great phrase for it. I think as I'm not a cyclist, but as a driver, boy, oh boy, it can be hair-raising for everyone on the road. We definitely don't have enough of a shoulder in many of these beautiful, beautiful places that we'd like to allow.
The cows, when they made the cow paths, they didn't consider this.
Cows didn't take that into...
And of course, we chose the Netherlands to get our bike from, which is probably the most bicycle-conscious place on earth, I would say, pretty close to it.
I think so. I don't know much about it, but that is definitely one of the flags you see flown, so to speak.
Well, I think that, Steve, you did quite a bit of research before we settled. I mean, Portland uses the Van Ram bikes and their trikes. Right. But you did quite a bit of research.
Yeah, I did. I looked at tried to find other manufacturers, and there's a few out there. Now, this company is called Van Ram, based in the Netherlands. They've been in business over 100 years, doing, obviously not electric, but all kinds, and they offer all kinds of different options for mobility. Most of them, you can get them with or without the electric motors. They have one that's like a walking cane with some wheels on it. So just to get people moving is a big part of it. But in doing the research and talking to Portland Wheelers and a couple of other organizations around the country, it was pretty clear that at this stage of the game, they've thought this through extremely well. They have a number of different models. They have another model that we're looking at sometime in the future, which does not have a rider in the front, but what it does is it has a platform, and if somebody's in a wheelchair, you can pull the wheelchair up on it and secure it and raise it up, and that way they're not having to get in and out of the wheelchair. So, I mean, there's a lot of options like this, but, we did find, and I found that overall the quality of the build, the safety aspects that they've thought through, this was really what we wanted to go with.
And I don't think it's quite as heavy as it looks. I know that's open to interpretation, but I think, did I hear one of you say it's about 100,
They're about
110 pounds?
110, 120 pounds, something like that, depending on how much you're carrying with them. But
And the maximum weight of a wheeler, the passenger, is
Beat me to it.
225 pounds. And it's the same with the pilot, 225 pounds. So you can imagine, if you've maxed that out, you're between 550 and 600 pounds. with the bike and the people on it.
Looking at the bike, you would never imagine that it had that capacity.
Yeah.
It truly looks, I mean, it's streamlined. That's 550 pounds is a lot of pounds. But it's electric, so
Right.
that wouldn't be terribly difficult for a novice cycler to.
Oh, not at all. And you don't have to be, Superman. I mean, they're very powerful, but not powerful in a way that you feel them surge or anything like that. It's a very slow process. When the motor starts to kick in, you'll feel the assist picking up and helping you. So, and you can dial it up or dial it back as much as you want.
And that kind of weight would be dangerous if you were going faster.
Yes.
But that kind of weight at
Yeah.
10 miles an hour, when you combine it with the disc brakes, front and rear, and coil spring suspension, it's just a very sophisticated bike.
Which-
I just can't stress enough, we don't go fast.
We can see for a thousand reasons, for all the reasons.
For a
How
lot of
about
reasons.
hills? How
Goes
does-
right up them.
Yeah?
It has
It really does.
three different settings on the electric motor where you can settle for 1, 2, or 3 depending on the severity of the hill.
And then downhill, I assume that's controlled by a brake.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that obviously this is so streamlined. They've done this before, so the wheeler wouldn't feel as if they were rushing down the hill or detached at
Right.
any point.
No.
Their sense of
No, the
safety and
brakes are
security
fantastic.
never changes.
There used to be caliper brakes that really couldn't take it, but the disc brakes are phenomenal.
Disc brakes are
Yeah.
the way.
Yep.
That's wonderful. Now, what about the age of a wheeler? Is there a too young? Of course, there's never a too old.
Well, the kids are doing amazing stuff at age 6 and 7 on wheels now. I would think they would be some of our best candidates
Yeah.
in
They
terms
just-
of the miles that they put on.
Yeah, they're just gonna have
I
to
think
be
all we
big
have to
enough.
do is audition them.
Yeah.
You know, as far as a wheeler, no, there isn't an age. There is no young age. If someone a young person has mobility issues or a disability of any kind, we'll take them.
That's
We'll give them
wonderful.
a ride.
I love that. Well, now let's talk about we were getting into the technical end of things a little bit, Kent. Can you help me understand how they come apart? Is it quick? How does it go back together? Sounds like it's.
I'm going to hand that one over to Jim. He's done it before.
When Portland trained Kent and I, the one thing they did not do is take them apart, and they said, we don't do this very often, but it does come apart. And I know if you look at the handlebars on the right-hand side where the right grip is, there are a couple of buttons that you can push, and that grip comes off. And down below, and maybe we can get a shot of this later, but down below, there is a handle then that goes into where you just took the right brake off and the grip. Loosen all of the cables, come loose, they're just Velcroed. Pull that all back. There's a wheel in the, I'm pointing to it, it's right over there opposite us. But there's a wheel that goes down on the bottom of the trike. There then is a pull pin and a lever. You pull that apart, it separates. And then that then becomes a wheelchair.
You make it sound pretty easy.
None of us have tried it yet.
In theory.
But even Portland said, we don't do it that often. But it was designed for that. And it was the reason that we followed Portland again. I love the fact that they said, look, we've had 9 years to make mistakes and we'll help you avoid those. And they have been incredibly helpful. But they just showed us how to do it once. We will do it eventually so that we know how and are proficient in it. But Van Ram they designed this for that reason. And I don't think they've left anything out. It's not difficult. And it really works quite well.
What I'm really fascinated with is that the whole idea of a tricycle was turned upside down. Because the wheel used to be in the front and the two wheels used to be in the back, and they were actually, Henry Gibson on Laugh-In that would always come in and tip over his tricycle?
Yeah.
They were very unstable. There's something about putting the two wheels in the front and the one in the back that changed the whole geometry of everything. And now it's actually a very stable vehicle. It's
I
really phenomenal.
Never thought, but I guess you're right. I
Well,
can
And
see.
the other thing, I mean, the benefit for the wheeler who is getting the ride is that they don't have to look at your back when you're riding. They get the wide open
That's
view
right.
out in front and the wind in their
Yes.
face.
And that is the
and it
experience.
makes conversation a lot better. I
And in
think.
fact, I hope before we leave here today that we're putting you in the wheeler seat.
Well, now we can see I didn't come dressed for this, ladies
we
and
have
gents.
a blanket
but
for you.
I'm told it doesn't matter too much. And it's not, just to come back to the E part of it, the electric part, it's not allowed. You're not distracted. You can have a conversation with
Makes
the
no
wheeler
noise.
and the pilot.
Makes no noise.
No
silence,
noise.
right.
That's wonderful. And now, what about water? Say you go, the rain starts. You go out, it's a beautiful day. Suddenly, it's not a beautiful day anymore.
Yeah, they're all water resistant, and as most electric bikes are. As long as you don't submerge them, you're fine. We're looking into canopies. Obviously we'll keep an eye on the weather, and if it looks like we may get a little shower or something, then we can have ponchos or something like that to cover people up. And I think that if wheelers are out on a ride, are they really going to care if they get a couple of raindrops on them? I'm going to guess probably not.
Part of the experience
Yeah.
is the weather.
Yeah.
You know,
exposure.
we got a wonderful donation from the town of Kittery to purchase the bags and the vests and the helmets. And the other thing we're going to get, what Portland does, is a lot of sunglasses. Very inexpensive sunglasses to give to everybody, and just make this as pleasant a ride as we can. I don't think any of us really quite understand what it's like to be shut in, to not be able to do what we all just take for granted and do. And we just want this experience to be as good as it can be. And when you're shut in, you rarely get to have a conversation with anybody other than the staff or maybe somebody else in the facility. And here you're out with other people. Hopefully you're in an environment that you're familiar with, and you're looking at something that perhaps you haven't seen in a while because you don't get out. And the conversations have been wonderful. It's just really fun.
And I'm sure that the joy for everyone involved, but the wheeler in particular, of course, that lasts and lasts.
Yeah.
It's a memory. You're creating memories.
Yeah, one of the things we say to the volunteers is, we do want you to understand, it is going to be habit forming. You are going to want to do this again and again.
And in speaking to what Jim said about how Portland Wheelers has never had a situation where a volunteer did not show up. I think that just speaks to the empathy project that's going on here, is that people that work with the Portland Wheelers or work with us, a lot of us are getting on in years. A lot of the volunteers have people that are in care facilities or headed there, or they may be headed there themselves. And I think it's a real eye-opener to everybody that works with the board and works with the Seacoast Wheelers that we're all headed there eventually, and it creates empathy. And
Growing
it's like-
old is a gift.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
it absolutely is. So you've had, obviously making connections here on the Seacoast and been well received.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Where are you heading next?
Mount Agamenticus.
Oh,
We're going to take them up on an easy trail up there and see how they do. We went through the woods last week over in Rye on a trail there, and it just was, they handled beautifully. The other thing that we ask Portland about these trikes, what happens when one breaks down? 9 years they've had it happen. This last spring was the first time in 9 years. But they're only, you're 20 minutes out from where you are, and they had somebody there in a few minutes and took care of the situation. So they're very, very stable, well-built, and a bicycle.
is there anything that you would want our viewers to know about the program, the bicycles, accessibility, that maybe we haven't covered today? Well, silence is a good sign.
Well,
I
I'd
think.
like to just to say that it's in the very beginning stages of this organization, and I'm really impressed with how far we've come. But when I look at the different varieties of the bicycle that's available and think about what's to come, there's another one that they call the rickshaw
Yeah.
that has 2 seats in front, so you could go with a friend.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think there's another one that has You can bicycle side by side, but I may be mistaken on that one. You can actually have the rider here and the pilot over here, and so there's different incarnations of this bike that we could get down the road, maybe when we're 10 years in the making. But we're just so happy with this thing right now. This is just amazing.
We've been to probably a dozen facilities since we've had the trikes to introduce them to the facility and the staff. And everyone is so excited. I mean, as soon as we send them the promotional material, they want to see them. Except last week, and I have to tell you, there's a great story. We took it over to one of the Parks and Recs departments. I won't say where, and the head of the department came out and said, I don't think my people are going to be interested in this. And I was a little taken aback. We haven't had any reaction like that. And she said, I just don't think they're going to be interested in something like this. I said, well, let me do this. Let me take you and a couple of your staff members, and we had our crew there, and I said, we'll just go down to the corner and back, take you for a ride. We didn't get 100 feet on the road, and she suddenly says, this is so comfortable. This is so wonderful. And by the time we got back, she said, I can think of about 50 people that will really enjoy this. So it's the experience of being in that wheeler seat. I've been in that wheeler seat a few times, and it is fantastic. I love riding in this. And I figure that it won't be that many more years that I may be in that wheeler seat more often than I think right now.
You'll be a bit of a backseat driver to the
Yeah,
pilot.
oh,
Huh? Well, thank you so much for spending the time with us today, gentlemen.
Well,
We're
thank you for
really
having
looking.
us.
Thank you. Thank you for appreciating the time that we could spend together getting the word out. As we know, Jim, as a television producer, this is a powerful medium.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to get the word out. And speaking of getting the word out, ladies and gentlemen, please check out seacoastwheelers.org. Obviously, they are looking for donations. They are looking for volunteer help, any way, shape, or form. Is there a way that you can think that you could help that perhaps we didn't think of today? Call them up. Send an email. And of course, as you know, if you are with a facility or you are with an organization for which you think this might be a fit, they have a very flexible schedule coming up for the spring, and now would be the time to hop right on that calendar. So once again, seacoastwheelers.org. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Kent, for making this possible. And thank you to all of the volunteers behind the scenes who aren't with us here on stage today for helping to bring this to fruition. This is a vital program. And of course, if you have a family member in a care facility or at home who does have limited mobility, you know just how critical the fresh air and the exposure is for all of us, for just a mental well-being. And you don't have to be part of an organization. They might be able to come to your home. Give them a call. Thank you so much for keeping us on air, ladies and gentlemen. It's because you're out there that we're in here. Thank you for supporting public television. And don't forget, seacoastwheelers.org. Check out our friends over at, what was it? Yes, seacoastwheelers.org. Thank you for spending your time with us today.